Good morning, everyone. Yeah, this is an unusual time for live stream, but we are living in unusual times, unprecedented times. So I decided to do a live stream today. It's Saturday, of course, April 11th. Sometimes I do lose track of the day of the week, even before this crisis, and I find it now even harder to keep track of it. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about what's going on, what I think is going to happen after this crisis is over. We don't know. We don't know really when it's going to be over. I usually don't buy the newspapers. I look at the papers online sometimes, but I just went down to the shop. I walked Billy this morning. You can see Billy here. He's got his silver with him today. He said he wants to keep them safer because he's heard there's a lot of shortage. So that's what he told me. So, for example, the Daily Mail today says UK not back to normal for a year. I mean, that seems a bit over the top to me. Daily Mail is always a little bit they're clickbaity newspaper, but this is from the government, though. I haven't. My wife was reading it with my daughter, but and there's some other papers that we'll go over. I've also got books here. Some of you have asked me if I could do like a live stream where I talk about which books I recommend. So I've got quite a few here that I think are interesting. So we've got 65 people. It's not bad. I mean, this is out of, I just decided to do it about half an hour ago. I put it up for 11:30 starting time, London time. So let's see who's here. We got Greg Capella. He was here first. Chris Parks. Now it's Evolution. Sorry about that. Good morning. Cash always leads to crash. Boom. Good morning, Marion. Billy. Didn't expect you to see this morning. No, I just thought it would be a good idea. And we can stay here for a while. Doesn't have to be an hour, which I usually do. Thank you, John, for the happy Easter. Hurricane Annie is in Sweden. I've watched some videos and read about Sweden. Sweden doesn't have a lockdown, and they have one of the lowest death rates. There you go, Sweden. They're probably doing the right thing, I would say. Hi, Ben Gray. Nice to see you. Grow Mechanic. Hello, Grow Mechanic. Cupid Stunt. Unexpected pleasure. Peter Lavington from Alicante. Central banks owe humanity $2 quadrillion. Treaty of Versailles bonds. Haven't heard about those. Global crisis of 1873 after the Civil War. This will be painful. I think it will. I think it will. I have said that in the past. Hi, Pad. Susan Bryan from Australia. Hi, Susan. Brady from Denver, Colorado. 3:30 a.m. in Oregon. Okay. Hi, Richard. Chester in Ecuador. Thank you, Mike T. Yeah, I mean, my subscribers have gone up quite a bit recently, and also my views. I guess what I have been trying to warn people and tell people about is coming to fruition, unfortunately, is during such a really, during this crisis, which is really, I would say, there's a lot of cognitive dissonance. But as I think Rahm Emanuel said once, never let a good crisis go to waste. And I think they're doing just that. The powers that be, the globalists, they're really going to try it. IDK says Sweden has a high death rate. Well, from what I saw in the video, it might have changed, but up until recently, it was a very low one. Robert just got up in Florida. You're welcome, Michael Katz. Yeah, Pat, I don't think it will end well. When they started the lockdown here, they said it was going to be 3 weeks. 3 weeks from when I counted, when they announced, was the 13th of April, or Monday. And now the papers are saying that it could last a year. This is the Daily Mail today here. UK not back to normal for a year. Normal life will stay on hold until a virus vaccine becomes available in about 18 months, officials said last night. I think that's one of the agendas as well, the vaccines. I've been reading about all these things for over 10 years. I started watching the Jeff Rentz show in the early 2000s. I used to watch a lot of InfoWars or the Jones Report back then. I know all about this plan. I don't talk too much about it because I try to focus more on the finance, but vaccines I've known all along. Sometimes the problem is not the vaccine, is what they put in the vaccine. So yeah, there you go. That's the Daily Mail today. But one concerning thing about the vaccines and this crisis is that I'm concerned they will, when things clear up, they will make everyone have the vaccine. Yeah, and well, Missy Nick Plur says no vaccine for me. Me either. I don't want it either. But if you want to do anything, you might have to have the vaccine if you want to travel, if you want to spend money. Let's hope it's not that bad, but it looks like that's the way they want to drive things. Hi, John Meyer. Nice to see you. Yeah, Charlie. I've seen many reports where people have been saying, "Oh, my mom didn't die of COVID or of this C disease. She had another condition." Yeah, they seem to be putting making saying that everyone's dying of this. Well, they might be dying of something else, and then they use that to build their models. Have you heard about the millions starving in India? The government is blocking the food supply. This starvation will sweep the globe by design. I haven't heard that about India, but I just saw it in the paper here as well in the UK. Or actually, it's not one of the papers I bought. It's in the FT today. It says 3 million go hungry in the UK because of lockdown. So it's not only in India. It says here more than 3 million people in Britain are going hungry because of the seed crisis, according to new research showing that stark drops in income have pushed many families into poverty during the lockdown. So yeah, this could be by design, because if you, as the Daily Mirror is saying here, it's not going to get back to normal for a year maybe. So how can people survive if a lot of people don't have any savings, a lot of people rent, a lot of people have debt. Yeah, it's going to be a mess, I think. That's what our gold and silver for trade between citizens. Stephen Larson, thank you for the super chat. It is said the Fed and Treasury printing of dollars is offset when dollars are destroyed as drops in value, as in drops in values of stocks. When dollars are destroyed as in drops in value of stocks. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Well, the problem about the QE and the debt that's been created is that after the 2008 crisis, yeah, there is a lot of financial assets for that funny money to go into the stock market, the housing market, mortgage bonds, treasuries, everything. But now we are at a bubble already. So, and the other thing as well, the Fed's trying to get the banks to lend again, and especially to small business, to the public. And I highly recommend you read, and I'll put the link here for you, an article by Alistair MacLeod. He talks about the final crack up boom, and he explains exactly the question you're asking. You see a lot of the debt that the Fed is creating, a lot of the loose conditions for lending that they're creating is not going to be taken up by the banks. Will a bank really want to lend to a small or medium-sized business when they see headlines like this that we could be shut down for another year or 18 months? I don't think so. So what's going to happen with all this funny money that they've created? The banks themselves, they're going to start buying real things with that. And that's when the currency loses value. That's when you get the inflation and possibly the hyperinflation. So hopefully that explains it to you. Yeah, maybe stocks will go up versus the dollar a little bit, but versus real things, we're going to see a crack up boom. Yeah, read that article by Alistair MacLeod. He explains it really well. I'm not going to go through the whole article here. Hope that helps. T-shirt idea 2020 post petrodollar blues. Susan Bryan, what's your thought on crypto? My money in crypto. Yeah, I'm not, I think crypto is a good idea, the blockchain. And I do have some cryptos, but I tend to prefer precious metals. And I'm not too sure about how cryptos will be used by the powers that be. So I'm a little concerned about them. I know a lot of people who are into cryptos don't think it's possible, but yeah, I think it is. So, but I think cryptos are very volatile. They will probably go a lot higher, but you need to be prepared to sit through big losses like people have been sitting for the last 2 years. A lot of people who got in near 20,000. Pat thinks it will take 30 to 60 days before deaths start ramping up from starvation. Will the world wake up when they'll have headlines advertise the deaths, or are they so dumbed down it won't matter? Or maybe they'll just keep it, the mainstream media will keep they won't report it as much. That's another way of doing it. Nick Blood, yeah, I have heard of Event 201. Yeah, there's a lot of people waking up to what Bill Gates is all about. I won't. Even Ron Paul in his Liberty report yesterday was talking about Bill Gates. SW, hi SW. Delta Bro, what do you say to a millennial who says, if you help me pay off my student loan, I'll buy a house? Well, the question is like, why should I help a millennial pay his student loans? I don't see why. No one helped me pay off my mortgage. So what I would say to the millennial, he can try to default on it, move to another country, maybe, where they won't come after him. But it might come to that. They might forgive that debt. Who knows? We still have an election coming up. I don't think President Trump is going to lose. And I'm not taking sides here. I'm just telling you what I think will happen. Yeah, Billy just jumped off the sofa. Bank of America credit card, if payment not made on due date, charges $39 or 29%. Yeah, that's why I have a credit card. I've had it for years, but I never spend on anything on it. The only time I spend something on it is when they write to me and say, "Oh, if you don't spend it, we're gonna terminate your card." Then I spend it and then I pay it the next day. So that's what I do with it. Bom dia, Chris says bom dia. That's a good morning or a good day in Portuguese. Well, it depends. So, SAC Media is saying silly to buy a house now. Well, not if you have the money to buy it outright. Why not? If you have plenty of money and you can buy, if you have been saving, if you have been buying gold and silver, if you don't have any debt, you can buy a house right now. But I think if you're okay where you are right now, just wait a little longer. I think the house prices are going to drop a lot more, so it could be a little early. Stephen Larson, another super chat. Thank you. Example of what some people are saying: if the stock market drops by 10 trillion, the Fed adds 4 trillion, then it isn't inflationary. I can see what you mean by that. The thing is, where will that 4 trillion flow? And as I said, read that article by Alistair McLeod. He thinks the banks now are not going to put the money into financial assets, paper assets, because they're becoming risky. And why is that? Because you can't guarantee when you lend money now through a mortgage, through credit, that it's going to be paid back. So he thinks banks are going to tend to go into hard assets. And the other thing as well, the Fed's balance sheet is increasing so much. Right now, it's over 6 trillion. It's gone from just above 3 trillion a few months ago. And I think it's going to get to 10. Very, very wealthy people are going to see that and they're going to get worried. And I think they're going to rush to gold and other tangible assets. And then it's going to flip. Confidence is going to be lost. And hyperinflation is the loss of confidence in the currency. And it can happen very quickly. Okay, trying to keep up with all the questions here. Atom derivative, I hear London OBMA fly metal out of COMEX to COMEX. Yeah, they have. I mean, this is a couple of weeks ago. It's an old story, but I did check I saw that June gold, June future on COMEX settled at, let's see here exactly, I've got the page, settled at 1740.6. That's the June gold. And the spot gold settled at 1685. So that's a $55 premium, which is huge. I was a futures and options broker, and I can tell you that the contango, which is the cost of storing gold, basically, that's why the future is higher than the spot price. It usually would have been, let's say, 1685, the spot. The future probably would have been 1690 or 1688, but it's at 1740. What that means is that it costs 15% a year now to store gold. So that's basically, and the LIBOR rate at which you can borrow the money if you sell your gold right now for, if you store your gold for until June, you can, and you sell that, and you get the cash for that, you sell it forward, you lease it out, you can get, well, you're getting about zero now, LIBOR. So it's actually means that gold is going into hiding. And it's costing a lot for very wealthy people to store the gold. So that's a bad sign. And it shows also that people are starting to ask for delivery on COMEX. I recommend, I put it here because I wanted to talk about this. There's a video by Bell and GP from a week ago. Gold is going into hiding. He talks about this lease rate and he works it out with looking at the COMEX price and the spot price. And that's what I've done. So right now, the lease rate is 15%. So what does that mean? Usually and it's negative as well, the lease rate. So that means that the bullion banks, it doesn't pay for them to lease gold. It costs them too much to lease the gold. So, and leasing the gold, physical gold, is how they are able to sell short the paper. So that's why they can't control the gold price on COMEX anymore. And I think it's going to translate into a higher spot price very soon. Yeah, I highly recommend that video there by Bell and GP. Catman 734, should I buy gold and silver now or wait for premiums to go down? In 08, the premiums are really high. It won't make much difference because when the premiums come down, that means the price will have gone up anyway. So you buy it now or then, it won't make too much difference. The problem is, yeah, right now, can you find any? It's getting harder and harder. It's going into hiding. So I would, personally, I would try to buy it now, physical gold and silver, if I can get a hold of it. Yeah, BC Joey, they don't ask the tough questions, do they? They will never be able to unwind the balance sheet. It's all gonna crumble and be decimated in terms of real value. That's why gold is going to go up. Gold is going to rebalance everything. So yeah, they can have a huge balance sheet, but it's not going to be worth much. And we've known from history, and here's one of the books. I've got a lot of books here. I'm going to take, oh, I scared Billy. I threw the books down on the floor. This is why because some people might think, how do you know they're never going to be able to? Well, because if you read history and learn from history, you know that it can't be done. The French tried it with the assignats and the mandats after the Revolutionary War, 1790 to 1796. They kept printing the assignats and then the mandats, and then eventually they lost. People lost confidence in those things. It collapsed. It created a lot of poverty and misery and a reign of terror in France. Yeah, so it's the same thing. Once you embark on a inflationary money printing exercise, it's really hard to get off it. Janet Yellen said a few years ago, once she decided to start unwinding the balance sheet, that it would be as easy, it would be like watching paint dry. It would be easy. And they tried it. They got it down from 4.5 trillion to 3.6 trillion. And then the market was starting to collapse. So the repo market was also getting into trouble. They had to flip and start cutting rates again and doing QE again. So we've gone from 3.7 to now 6.1 trillion, the balance sheet, and they're not going to be able to stop. It's probably going to be at 10 trillion before the end of the summer, I would say. All right. Is platinum any good? Yeah, platinum is a good tangible asset to have in these times, I think. I don't have any, but it's not a monetary precious metals, but it is a precious metals nevertheless. But it is more related to manufacturing, to automobiles, so that might hurt it a little bit. That's why I prefer just gold and silver. What do you think of starting a tech startup in this environment? I think you can start companies in any environment as long as it's a good idea that you think will work out well and that you have enough capital to start it. Um, but if it's a really good idea and you think it could do well, but you have to borrow a lot of money, I'm not too sure. But I don't think there's a right time to start. Well, I guess there is a right time to start a business, but yeah, I don't. If you think it's a good idea, I think why not? An evening live stream, Rumpelstiltskin. Well, it's in the morning here, but Rumpelstiltskin is in Japan, of course. That's why he's saying it's an evening one. So you see, there is a silver lining for some other people, because normally he'd have to get up really early. So the title of the live stream, what have the powers that be got in store for us? And I bought this paper yesterday, the Times of London. I usually don't buy the Times at all, and I don't subscribe online, but I would say they're kind of the BBC of newspapers. They're very closely related to the establishment. Some people would say they're more right wing, but I would say they're more establishment paper. So they I think know what they're talking about. So this is a 2-page thing here, news, and you can see what they say here. The C, for better or for worse, scramble for solutions will change our world. So I want to go through some of these things they're talking about during the live stream. John Meyer, thank you, John. Super chat. Isn't the Fed's only concern now to ramp up U.S. dollar demand? If they fail, it's the end of the dollar as world reserve currency, and hyperinflation will finally hit the American shores. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of dollar demand from the people who have borrowed in dollars, and that's one of the reasons why they've had to increase the balance sheet. They're doing repos and swap lines to other foreign central banks. They're even doing it to emerging market countries. But yeah, the thing is, yeah, demand for the dollar. I mean, the more they print, though, the more susceptible to hyperinflation is going to become. And to be honest, the Fed and the U.S. government and the leadership, they probably not too concerned that the dollar goes down, and that they don't have to be responsible anymore for managing the reserve currency of the world. And I think talking about that, I'll go into the Times, and one part says nationalism versus globalism. So I think with this crisis afterwards, we're going to become much more isolated. It's not going to be as interdependent, and maybe we don't need the dollar anymore as a reserve currency. And I think it will be gold that will replace the dollar. And why do I say that? Well, because gold has always been a base for the monetary system, and it's going to go back probably to a system where if you don't have the gold, you're not able to trade internationally. So what do they say here? Global supply chains are under urgent scrutiny, especially in the US. Peter Navarro, the architect of Mr. Trump's most protectionist policies in his trade war with China, raged against European countries that impose export controls on critical supplies, such as ventilators, declaring that in a global public health emergency, the US is alone. Yet Mr. Trump is accused of trying to buy monopoly rights over a vaccine from Germany. Washington is also waking up to uncomfortable statistics. But yeah, so I think, yeah, the dollar is definitely, it's not going to go away, of course. The British pound used to be the reserve currency up until maybe early 1900s. and it's still around, and it's still used as a reserve currency, even though it's a small percentage. I think, yeah, I think it's going to be not as important, and people will start using other currencies to trade amongst each other, and they're already doing it. I hope that answered your question, John. Let's see who else is here. Jeff Brown, who will I be interviewing next? No, I haven't got anyone planned. I'm thinking about a few people, and you will know, I guess, when it comes out. I try not to pre-announce interviews. I think it's nicer to have a surprise for the viewers. Catman, I did watch that interview, David Icke on London Rio. London Rio is booming. Yeah, they've had quite a lot of following already for the last 9 years, but yeah, that helped them. Jeff Brown, yeah, the UK only has 300 tons of gold, which is very little. The only thing going for the UK is that the Bank of England holds about 5,000 tons of gold, not for themselves, but for other countries. So there is that old saying that possession is 90% of the law, but who knows? Politics and economics, Professor Richard Werner. Yeah, I've listened to his ideas. I agree with him on some things, but I don't agree completely with him on other things. But yeah, we'll see. Mohammed Shaban, Ike needs to mention his sources. Well, he's done a lot of research. So yeah, I guess if he mentioned all his sources in that interview, we'd be there for another, still probably be listening to him. Farid Zach, Jim Rickard says US has 70% GDP in gold. I don't know if that I would agree with that. The US has got, supposedly, they've got 8,000 tons. Not sure that adds up to 70% of their GDP. SC, could a gold price revaluation prevent hyperinflation? Well, that is hyperinflation. You know, if the price of gold goes to $100,000, that means the dollar is destroyed. The dollar buys only 1/100,000th of an ounce. So that is hyperinflation itself of the fiat currency. Yeah, so you're right. No, I guess it won't prevent. That will be the result of hyperinflation. It could be an artificial way of doing it, but the way you have to think about it is like, 50 years ago, $1 bought 1/35th of an ounce. So if it goes to 100,000 in the reset, $1 will buy only 1/100,000th of an ounce. So that dollar's become almost worthless, which is the definition of hyperinflation. Gold silver ratio reversing. It's difficult right now, even though recently it looks like silver has been trying. I think it was on Wednesday, silver was outperforming, and then it got hit back down. And then on Thursday, gold did better than silver. I just stick to having gold and silver. I don't really try to trade the spread. Recently, 3 weeks ago, I was able to buy a little bit of silver. Do you think Iraq, Iran, Indonesia will revalue their currencies? Uh, I don't really follow those countries, but everyone's like everything depends on the dollar. So I don't think it makes any difference. I don't know what you mean by revaluing against what those currencies. I think they'll be on the same in the same boat as everyone else. Yeah, Andrew and Anna, I agree with you. Things are getting crazy, monetary wise and every wise, I would say, right now. Deflation or inflation? Uh, it depends what your definition of inflation and deflation are. Inflation, in my dictionary, in the Maneco 64 dictionary, is the increase in the money supply and credit, and we're having that in spades. Some people equate inflation to the consumer price. That's just a consequence of inflation. What I see are currencies losing more and more value. So the purchasing power is going to decrease and the cost of living is going to keep rising. I also see a deflation of asset prices. So yeah, it's not a clear-cut answer. Nikki Sticks. Well, I think silver could break 18 next week. That's how explosive it could get. So I think it's very possible it could break 18 before the end of the summer. So one of the things the Times says, they've touched upon the death of cash. So I think that's another way they're going to try to not waste this crisis. Already here in the UK, from the 1st of March, when you use your card, contactless card, used to be £30. The maximum now it's 45. So that's going to push people into using their cards more. And so the Times says the death of cash. Yeah, I think that's something they're going to push a lot. The C pandemic has seen the use of cash halve amid concerns that banknotes could spread the virus, has accelerated a trend already underway for contactless and card payments, with the limit on contactless payments with the limit on contactless payments increasing from 30 to 45. Smartphone services such as Google and Apple Pay already ignore these limits. The move puts Britain close in line with countries like Finland, where cash is already considered outdated. So I think that's really bad. I mean, that you're not able to use cash. So I think that's something that they're definitely going to try to exploit. DMC, how could central banks, governments let cryptos succeed and still maintain autonomy of tax collection? Well, because they can let, already nowadays, if you want to spend your cryptocurrency, you have to convert it into fiat. Very few people accept cryptocurrencies, maybe within the crypto community. But if you go to a shop, they want the pounds or the dollars or the euros. And if you look at a lot of the cards where you can lock cryptos and then exchange it for fiat, you have to do anti-money laundering and know you're a client. So they're following everyone. They're keeping track of everyone already in the crypto space, the governments. That's my opinion. Of course, there are some cryptos like Monero that are supposed to be, you're not supposed to see who owns it, but still, if you go down to the shop and you're going to pay in Monero, they won't accept it. You're still going to have to go into the fiat and use it in your card. And like Wirex, they asked me for documents and stuff. So the government will know when you transfer your crypto to fiat. They might not know that you don't have that you have cryptos, but what's the point of having it if you can't convert it, unless of course you can exchange it with someone that will accept it directly. John Perkins. Yeah, that would probably be interesting interview. I've read his books, the Economic Hitman. Yeah, what's happening now? Actually, that's a good point you made there. Well, it's good that you mentioned him, because I think what we're getting now is what has been happening in third world countries for the last 70 years. That's what the powers that be, the New World Order, they've been doing what they're doing to us in the UK, in the US, and in Europe. They've been doing that forever in the third world countries. Any wonder why they're such poor countries? Well, we're getting these are the economic hitmen coming right now, and the Fed and the central banks are part of these hitmen. And like Greg Manorino has said, they're buying up everything. They're going to own everything. Books. One of my viewers recommended this book last year to me. Lionel Shriver, The Mandibles. There you go. A Family 2029 to 2047. And I think it's a really good book. It's fiction, but it's a lot closer to reality, I would say, or a possible reality. And especially now with this crisis, this book becomes even more relevant. I highly recommend it, The Mandibles. It's such a good book that I couldn't put it down. I read it in about 4 days. She's an American living in the UK. Yeah, it is a woman, Lionel Shriver. I think she changed her name to Lionel herself when she was younger. She liked the name. So what's it say? It is 2029. The U.S. national debt has grown so enormous. Well, and now the debt is growing so enormous. I think their U.S. debt clock is forecasting the U.S. national debt at 37 trillion already in 2024. So this could be right. The national debt has grown so enormous that it can never be repaid. The dollar is in meltdown. A bloodless international currency war will wipe out the savings of millions of American families. Their pending inheritance turned to ash. Each member of the formerly formidable Mandible family must contend first with disappointment, then the challenge of sheer survival as they navigate a society in ruin. Almost sounds like this 2029 could be more like 2022 or 2023. So yeah, I highly recommend that book. Yeah, but Padenda, I think it's yesterday I made a video. It was at 24.12. It's moving up really quickly. I remember it was stuck around 107% of GDP. Now it's almost 112. Okay. Eurozone banking crisis. Yeah, Life Growth Academy, I agree. If you read this article here, this is a really good article by Alistair MacLeod. It is a bit technical, so it will take you time to read it. But he actually says that the European banks are probably going to be the first ones to go because they're highly leveraged. But he says it doesn't mean that the American banks won't go either. He says that Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank, and Barclays in the UK are the most leveraged. No, Jane Smith, I don't think the Dow has hit its bottom. I think we're far, far away from the bottom in the Dow, even though we have seen it rally recently. Smart crypto. Should I start a tent business? Well, wonderful interview with Shriver. Yeah, I think I saw that interview. I'll have a look again. Get him rolling. Yeah, gold silver ratio, Heisen. Yeah, documented history. Well, yeah, it's yeah, what can it's just that Billy's here. He's just jumped off the sofa. He's looking outside. Gold silver ratio, yeah, it's surprising how much it has gone up. I think it's because people have been so brainwashed to think that silver is just a industrial commodity, and that's why they're not really paying attention to it. But I think it will, you know, turn. But I'm not concerned. You know, I have both gold and silver. I don't care if silver hasn't done well, because the gold has done well, and I know silver will do well as well. SAC Media, I contacted, let's see here, contacted Glint physical delivery. They will do it, but it's expensive and can take up to 12 weeks. Yeah, I can understand that right now, why that is so, because of the crisis. Last year, someone, I don't know if it was you or someone else, they did delivery and it was really quick. I don't think it's because they don't have it, but I have a little bit on my Glint app in gold, but it's not really significant. I prefer the physical. Will commodity prices rise on the lower US dollar? Yeah, they will. Usually the dollar moves inversely to commodity prices because it's the reserve currency and it's what other countries use to buy things. Yeah, colloidal silver. I do have some colloidal silver, but you kind of wonder, you know, with all the different theories about what's going on, if it's really useful. In this case, I'm not saying it isn't normally, but we don't even know exactly what we've got on our hands. I think the most important thing, and this is not to do with markets or money, it's to do with health. And I'm not a doctor, but it's just common sense that if you eat well, if you exercise regularly, and if you don't drink too much or smoke too much, your immune system is going to be healthy. So I think that's really important. I've been trying to go. Yeah, I went this morning, like at 7, to the park. I walked for an hour, maybe a little longer. I guess I shouldn't do more than an hour, but I did. So yeah, and it feels good. And I started running a little bit. Uh, I walk most of the way. I used to run a lot when I was younger, in my 20s. I was in very good shape, and I remember never getting ill in my 20s. And I don't get that ill right now either. But I think we need to worry about our health a bit more and exercise. Social credits. Yeah, I think that's what Catherine Austin Fitz thinks. She thinks crypto are dangerous because of that. It will all be credit. It won't be commodity money. I kind of agree with her. We already have the inflation, Adam. We've had massive inflation since the early 80s. And in my dictionary, inflation is the increase in the money supply and the increase in credit. You just have to look at the Fed's balance sheet. At base money, it's going like crazy. So the deflation will come afterwards, of course. But you could have a deflation and a hyperinflation. It's just crazy. Hyperinflation is a loss of confidence in the currency, is the destruction of the currency. but it will feel like a deflationary environment. Many business will go under. People won't have enough to buy food, or it's going to be, not good. Yeah, Life Growth Academy. The Chinese have a lot of the. I have heard and read, listened to videos about the credit system, social credit. It's very Orwellian. I agree, and I've even seen in little shops in China, people go in, and there's no one working in the shops, and you just scan things, and it's like Bill Gates wants everyone to be vaccinated and have a kind of a chip. So yeah, they could block you. You go like that. You just walk in a shop, and they scan you through the stuff injected into your blood, and if you've done something wrong, it will flash a red light, and then maybe a security guy will come and say, "Oh, you can't come in here." So yeah, it's pretty sinister, and hopefully that won't happen. Jake Jones, hi Jake Jones, nice to see you, Jake in Hong Kong. Harry Chu, hi Harry. Yeah, I decided to do a early live stream today. I did a long video yesterday, and today's still Saturday, but maybe I'll do another live stream tomorrow night. I think I will, because I usually do on the Sunday, and I'll probably stay on here for a while right now. Someone mentioned Bob Chapman. Yeah, I really enjoyed, my wife and I really enjoyed listening to Bob Chapman. Yeah. Yeah, he died a few years ago. He was a friend. He met Robert Mugabe when he used to live in Zimbabwe. He used to talk about how he used to have some chats with him. China, the world's largest economy. I'm not sure right now, because all the GDP numbers are going to be affected. We probably have to wait until next year when the dust settles. It probably will be. Who knows? Fed coin, I've heard it mentioned. I don't really have an idea. I think, yeah, that's probably what maybe the Fed will try to call its blockchain-based currency. It's not going to be decentralized, of course. They're just going to use the technology, but it will be centralized. They could call it the Fed coin or the US dollar coin. Hong Kongers ain't having the social distancing or the rules about assembly. Interesting. I mean, here in the UK, you the only places I've been going to is to the supermarket or walking in the park. You notice in the park, if there's someone coming from the other way, people tend to try to get away from each other. And if you sometimes get too close to people by accident, they look at you very worried. Burkhard Dahm's prep toilet paper. Well, right now that the toilet paper or toilet roll shortage is disappeared. I went to the supermarket. Was it 2 days ago with my wife? We went to the Asda, which is actually Asda is actually owned by Walmart. And there was plenty of toilet paper. We didn't buy any because we didn't need any. But you could be right. There could be another shortage soon. Another book. Well, the other day I interviewed Ron Paul, and I've had this book for many years, and the Fed. and I started reading it again. I haven't finished it, but yeah, sometimes it's good to read books again, and I highly recommend this book. Ron Paul talks about when he was younger, during just in the 30s and during the war, and it's really good. So yeah, I recommend that. So we got 465 people. That's good. Golden Gate. You mean Greg Manorino, I assume, said there will be hyperinflation as the economy is frozen. Fed will print. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen the link to this article here by Alistair McLeod. He calls it the crack up boom, which is basically hyperinflation. And what he's saying is that the Fed is making lending conditions very loose for lending institutions, for banks. But banks, they don't want to lend to small or medium-sized businesses. It's too costly and too risky. So that's going to actually cut down their balance sheet. They're going to have to deleverage, and it's going to start like a tsunami of defaults. And eventually the banks themselves they're going to take all the money that they've gotten for free from the Fed, and they're going to be buying real things, tangible goods, gold, land, and that's when you're going to get the hyperinflation. But yeah, I recommend that article there by Alistair McLeod. I've asked him to connect on LinkedIn, Alistair McLeod. He hasn't come back yet. Maybe I'll try to get him to come on the channel to talk about that. I think that's really important. And he thinks the fiat currency system could implode before the end of this year. That would mean hyperinflation. Just as American says, Greg Manorino said the other day, USA was the 1,000-year Reich, which never died. Pretty offensive. Well, sometimes the truth can be offensive. I'm not saying it's true. One thing I would say, though, a Google Operation Paperclip. After the end of the war, World War II, the Russians and the Soviets became the enemy. And who were the Nazis' biggest enemy? They were the Soviets. So the Americans recruited thousands of Germans, not only scientists, and it was an intelligence, how can I say, operation. And a lot of these Germans became American, and probably a lot of them are part of the CIA and the deep state. So maybe he's got a point, and it might sound offensive, but who knows? That's really going down the rabbit hole. But there was an Operation Paperclip. Yeah, some people think the Bush family were involved as well. Well, talking about the war and the Nazis, this is a good book, The Tower of Basel. It's all about the BIS, and it shows how the warring countries were doing business together through the BIS. So, so and that's why a lot of people say that all wars are bankers' wars, right? And I know it sounds offensive and disrespectful for the families of all the people that fought in that war and died or injured and maimed. And yeah, but like I said, the truth sometimes can be very bright. So that's the other book I recommend. You will see how the bankers work together even during wartime. Adam Libor, Tower of Basel. The sheriffs, yeah, I've seen that theory. I'm not too sure. I do know that it was the Prescott Bush. He worked for a bank. They were involved in lending a lot of money to the Germans in the 30s, but so were a lot of the other banks, of course. But yeah, the Americans and the City of London, Wall Street, they financed the German economy in the 30s. So they helped build up the German war machine. So gold availability is still not very good, Jake. I look at a lot of the bullion dealers online. A lot of them are only allowing, they'll say, oh, we can set a price, but we don't know when you're going to get your gold or silver. One of the only ones that have been able to provide gold and ship it so that you can get it within a day or two is Gold Investments. And even they told me they were running out of sovereigns. They still have Krugerrands. So yeah, the gold supply and silver supply is still limited here in the UK. DMC, I saw the original Zeitgeist, but I didn't know there was an addendum. I have to look into that. Thank you. Cheap Life Kennedy. Yeah, I do actually. Good question. Mortgage and pension crisis. In my video yesterday, if you go to my video, you don't have to listen to the whole thing, but towards the end, I talk about an article in the FT where this guy called John Dizzard, he's an American that works for the FT. He's saying that the Federal House Agency regulator, he's making it really hard for all the help to go to the mortgage sector to he calls them the people who organize the mortgages. There's another word for it, but he thinks that from May, and if things don't change in May and June, you could see loads of failures, mortgage failures. He thinks April's still okay, and apparently it's this regulator. He's trying to block things, and he's actually has the support of Steve Mnuchin. So you have to kind of wonder why the U.S. Treasury would want to do that. So yeah, look at that. Look at my video from yesterday. It's more towards the end, and I talk about that mortgage situation in the U.S. Golden Gate, Greg said there will be no hyperinflation as the economy is frozen, so Fed will print until decides not to. Well, it's usually when an economy is in a depression or frozen that you get hyperinflation, because that money that the Fed prints cannot go into risky paper assets anymore. So what the banks will do with that credit money is they'll start buying real goods, tangible goods, and that's what's going to cause the hyperinflation. So I don't agree with Greg Manorino on that point. SW says push the thumbs up icon. Thank you. Yeah, the other thing about pensions, just as Americans, for example, here in the UK, when I started paying into the what's it called here, the pension system, I forgot, Social Security, you call it, or national insurance here, in the early 90s, I was told that at the age of 65, I'd be able to draw on it. But in the meantime, after the 08 crisis, they changed that to, for me, to age 67. I went to walk Billy earlier today, and one of my neighbors was out. We didn't get too close, but we were having a chat, and we were talking about that. And he also said, yeah, they could probably extend that for another year or two. So yeah, you'll probably get paid your pension, but they're gonna defer it even more, and it's not going to be worth much. You won't be able to buy much. You might get the few $100s a week or whatever it is, but that's going to buy like a nice Happy Meal at McDonald's, or maybe a little more. Mr. Personality says they're dropping like flies here. London Rio looks like we have a 5G technology problem. Yeah, apparently we're not supposed to talk about 5G, but yeah, there's a lot of opinions about 5G and whether there is some connection to all this. I don't know enough to talk about it. One thing I do know is that 5G is dangerous. There have been studies that it's almost like a weapon. Yeah, that's right, Tom. Let them use their B-Day. I think that was Marie Antoinette who said that. The Stevening, China is a failing state. I would say almost any state now, any country looks pretty bad right now, not just China. The whole world is failing the Stevening. I would say China will probably do better because they're more authoritarian. Not saying that's a good thing. Oh, you've done better than I have, Justice. I've got a $10 trillion note. SW, yes, the higher grade of 5G is used by the military as a weapon. And I think Donald Trump wants 6G. I wonder how dangerous that's going to be, 6G. Crazy. Will there be a war? Asks Video. My last the last time I listened to Catherine Austin Fitts on Greg Hunter's show, she seemed to be concerned about that. Yeah, so John Meyer says, if the real powers are prepared to sink a boat full of passengers, be prepared again. Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about that the other day and of doing a video or making a tweet. So the people who brought you Harper's Ferry, I think that was an event that triggered the Civil War. The people that brought you the sinking of the Maine, that was an event that triggered the Spanish-American War. The people that brought you the assassination in Sarajevo of the Austrian prince or archduke, the people that brought you Pearl Harbor, the people that brought you the Gulf of Tonkin, the people that brought you the babies being taken out of incubators in Kuwait, the people who brought you what else? Weapons of mass destructions. They're the same people that are bringing us this current crisis. So can we trust them? I'm not too sure. Can you hear me? Okay, because it seems like my microphone has gone off. Just let me know if you can still hear me. Oh, you can hear me. Good, good. Yeah, so throughout history, that's what they do, false flags. And with that, I'm going to pick up another book. And I mentioned this book right in the beginning of what's going on now, when it started out in China, when we started seeing spreading, I said it was going to be like this, The Energy Non-Crisis by Lindsey Williams. So the last crisis we had, where we had kind of a change in our monetary system, we went from the Bretton Woods Agreement to a petrodollar system, and they had to do it through the oil crisis. And in this book, Lindsey Williams talks about how he was actually in the ranch in 1973, and the guy who ran the ranch said that the government told him to turn off the pipeline. There was an oil pipeline going through there. From oil was flowed from the west coast to the east. So basically, he's saying the oil crisis is all. We always blame the Arab countries and OPEC for the oil crisis in the 70s, but it was engineered. It was done together with the Americans to raise the oil price so that you'd get people, other countries having to demand a lot of dollars, and that's how they kicked off the petrodollar system. So I think what we're getting right now is the same thing, and it will probably be for a digital currency. Someone asked me, no golf. No, they've closed the courses here at the moment, so we can't even play golf, which is a bit silly. Because I saw a picture on social media. It had a picture of a Walmart with everyone going shopping still, and a picture of a golf course, and it was empty. Doesn't make sense. I'm doing a little bit of chipping in the garden, and that's about it. So yeah, I think reading this book and what's happening now, I'm not saying there isn't a crisis. I just think it's being managed and engineered, and maybe overblown a little bit, but only because they have an agenda. I guess we will find out as time goes by what the agenda is. I guess we can guess what it is. Cashless society, surveillance, many other things, vaccines. Lee Wiener says he golfed, or she, I'm not sure, he or she. I think in Scandinavia, like Norway and Sweden, they haven't done a lockdown, so people are probably playing golf. Yeah, it's disappointing not to be able to play golf, but it's not the end of the world for me. But there you go. If anything, I miss more the fact that we haven't got the Masters on, which I enjoy watching. Hi, full of hope. Nice to see you. Tom Seward, thanks to lockdown, the only remaining sport is watching porn. Oh boy. Gold having a pullback next week. Anything's possible in these gold markets, but I noticed that June gold settled at 1740 this Thursday. So there's a 55 premium. So actually the price, the weekly and monthly charts look very good. Could have a small pullback, but if you're buying physical gold, I wouldn't be worried about a pullback, because you probably it's really hard to find any gold. I think the best thing now is if you can find gold. But if you're going to trade this paper gold, which isn't really gold, then yeah, you could have a pullback. Currency will be food. Well, that would be barter, I guess. Catherine Austin Fitz says as well that probably she thinks gold is a good investment going forward, or will be a good asset to have. But she says you need to look into food as well. So you could be right. BC Joey, when did you retire? I never retired, BC Joey. I was in the city until 2012. They closed down the desk. I was a futures and options broker, and they closed it down. So it was the first time that I was like made redundant. Uh, and I decided to start my own business. I bought into a franchise that didn't work out too well, and by 2015, I'd liquidated the business. And I tried to get back into the city, and I got a few interviews, but I think my age didn't help. A lot of the people who interviewed me said, "Oh, you're too experienced." And then yeah, I started doing these videos. But yeah, doing the videos, I thought I'm going to start doing my YouTube videos. And I didn't think it would get as big as it is, as many followers, but it has been good. But no, I have didn't really retire. I don't believe in retirement. It's I think people need to keep going. That's another scam as well, I think, mainly because they want people to put money into their welfare state, Social Security and national insurance. So the only way to convince people to do that is that they need to retire. And yeah, so it's worked out all right. We had to sell our house because I had a small mortgage, and we bought another house. It's a bit smaller. We paid everything off, and we had a bit of money left over. And yeah, and yeah, just not really retired. I guess you could say I am semi-retired, but yeah, I think people can do it. Um, it's just a matter of, for example, I'm probably saving 400 pounds a month, maybe more, in transportation going to the city and back. I don't have to get up like 5 o'clock in the morning to be there at 7 and come back home at 7. There's a lot of things that, and I don't have the mortgage anymore. So DMC says he's pleased that I started the channel. Adam G, I do monetize my channels, actually. Some people complain that there's too many videos on it. Maybe you haven't seen my other videos. No, they are monetized. One of the guys that gave me the idea of starting a YouTube channel was JSnip4, because I used to like watching his videos, and I thought I could do that, And at the time, I think he had 28,000 subscribers, which is a little less than I have now. I've got almost 30 now. But he said it took 5 years for him to get to 28,000. So it's taken me about 4.5. And yeah, I even had a chat with him. So he's a nice guy. I don't agree with everything he says, but that's who I got the idea from. Adam G, have you been watching my videos for a long time? That's weird because I have been monetizing them and I can see the revenue. And it depends where you are. I don't know. Patreon. Yeah, I do have I do have a Patreon account. It's all in the description below. Yeah, and there I have quite a few patrons, but it's not as steady. I mean, if all my subscribers would donate a dollar, I guess I wouldn't have to monetize it, but that's not the case. $1 a month, I would say. John Meyer says he never sees adverts. That's strange. That is strange. Maybe you've set up your YouTube not to see adverts. Who knows? But No, I am getting the revenues, but I will double check. Yeah, Smart Crypto 29. I don't think all my 29,000 subscribers watch all my videos anyways, but let's say, a tenth of the subscribers gave $1 a month. That would still be a good income. Uh, Emerging markets, are they doomed? Well, they've been doomed for forever, so I don't think it's going to get that much worse. I mean, Brazil and Argentina have been, examples of now how not to run countries. Unfortunately, Argentina used to be one of the richest countries in the world in the early 1900s. There was a saying, I think, in Europe when people saw a rich person driving in a fancy car, they'd say, "Oh, that's an Argentinian." So, but I guess they've gone downhill so much, Brazil and Argentina, that there isn't as much downside, I would say, um, as we have here in Europe or in the US. Wiener says the Austrian guy went to Argentina. Yeah, there is a lot of speculation he did. Well, a lot of them went to the US as well, Wiener, not just Argentina. Probably more went to the US through Operation Paperclip. Adam G, I only come across them in the last 3, 4 weeks. Yeah, I do activate every time I do a video. Yeah, I have heard of QAnon. I don't really follow that, and I think that's a waste of time. I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with me. Yeah, Lindsey, I agree with what Lindsey is saying about QAnon there. Golden Gate, I don't think they're going to default. It's just that they're going to print so much money that it's going to be, $100 is going to be like $10. So you're still going to get it, but it's like in Brazil. My father paid into the Brazilian pension, and he used to pay the maximum every month for him and my mother. And my mother still gets that, but it's not the maximum. They don't give her the maximum, even though my dad paid the maximum, and it's not really that much. No ads, Dr. Evil says. Oreo cookies. I do. I don't really eat that much uh, Oreo cookies. It's all right. I can think of better cookies than Oreo cookies, like shortbread biscuit cookies, shortbread. I prefer shortbread, chocolate chip cookies, and the fig Newtons. I like those. Oreos is okay, but it's not my favorite. Precious metals, premiums. It depends on the dealer. If they have the supply, their premium won't be as high, and it changes. Right now, the premiums are really high. Oh, you're welcome, Rucroft brothers. Thank you. I think so, Golden Gate. I think it's possible. What you're saying there that could happen in the U.S. And it'll probably be before the end of this year, I would say. Paul from Bellum GP. If you can get me an email, there's no other way to contact the guy. Samantha Jane, I think some of them know uh, what's going on, but most of them don't, and they probably think it's just because of this crisis. New narrative is that the virus is back in South Korea. John Mayer's gonna go work in the garden. Good. Yeah, I cut the grass yesterday in the garden. So enjoy. Okay, I'll take a few more questions. Golden Gate, food shortages. I don't know. I don't know when it's possible. It's possible. I can't really say when. I think Ray Dalio is right. It's going to be worse than the 1930s, personally. No, don't grow any vegetables. My wife and daughter, they've started growing a few things like spring onions and stuff like that. But we are looking maybe into maybe getting more serious about it. 1 ounce Britannia over 1600 on gold investments. I think their Krugerrands are a little less, but that's quite amazing. That's quite high. Adam G, do you think we will see a bank holiday in the UK or US? It's possible. It's possible. Yeah. I'm surprised they've been able to keep the markets open. I think the fact that everything is done through the screens nowadays helps. In the old days, 20, 30 years ago, I think the markets would have been shut because everyone traded in an exchange and they were close to each other. I think it's going to be the last thing they want to do is shut the market down. Mass graves being dug not far from me in London, southeast. Well, that's pretty much where I am, but I hadn't heard about that. I haven't really heard of anyone around where I live dying of this thing or contracting or having the virus. Uh, Chislehurst. That's where I used to live. Chislehurst. I moved from there 5 years ago. Sundridge Avenue. Do you know Sundridge Avenue, Lisi? That's where I used to live. No, I'm not in the US, Shannon. I'm in the UK, in London, England. Gary D, thank you for your super chat donation. Canadian dollars. Yeah, Chislehurst and Bromley is a nice area. Fauci, for Fauci and Burks, that's the woman that works with him. Go to Amazing Polly's channel, Amazing Polly on YouTube. She's connected Fauci, Burks, and even Mike Pence to Bill Gates. So that's really interesting. Urig is in Orpington. Yeah, I'm not far from Orpington either. Used to go a lot to Orpington to there's a small shopping center there. And my mother-in-law lives in Petts Wood, which is very near Orpington. Yeah, I guess my address was Bromley, but it was like near Chislehurst, or it was actually Bickley, it was called, my address. Robert Diallo, amazing. Polly is great. Yeah, she's amazing. Oil, $20. Well, they apparently came to an agreement, the Russians and the OPEC, and oil price didn't do anything. It went down. So I just saw here the main headline right now in the FT is that the G20 backs largest oil supply agreement in history. So it looks like they're trying to get an bigger cut than 10 million barrels. So it's funny that they're desperate to get oil prices higher while the world economy is going into a depression. It's ridiculous. What team you support? Not sure. Is that which kind of team you're talking about, Vesero? Sterling's Financial Solutions, thank you for your super chat. Love from a fellow economist in Worcester Park. Thank you. Love your content. Yeah, I did see that about Bill Gates' dad. He used to be the head of Planned Parenthood or something like that. Football team. Well, I'm originally from Brazil. I am in London, but my team, is Flamengo. And there's a saying. Oh, sorry, I misspelled it. That's my football team in Brazil. And there's a saying that once you're a Flamengo fan, you will always be a Flamengo fan. In the UK, I used to, before I moved to Bromley, we used to live in Greenwich. In Greenwich, Southeast London. And sometimes I used to go to the Charlton games when they were in the Premiership. So I kind of like Charlton, but they've gone downhill. Don't really have a team here that I follow. I don't follow too much football anymore. Amazing science, tech. Would dollar ever fall from its reserve status? Yeah, that's always the way. Reserve currencies don't last forever, but it will still be an important currency. Negative oil prices, negative interest rates. Why not negative oil prices? Give it away. Is Trump a puppet? I don't know about Trump. It's very confusing. Samantha Jane says Mario has me all motivated to have a YouTube live stream later today. So much going on. I'll have to keep an eye on your channel, Samantha. Cricket. I like cricket as well. I never played cricket because being from Brazil, even though the place that I lived in Brazil, there was a cricket club there, but I like cricket. I like baseball a lot as well. I did play baseball in Brazil at my American high school. Favorite ski town? Well, somewhere in Switzerland. That's where my family is. Sack Media. Trump is a joker. Classic. Kung flu. What do you think of Bolsonaro? I don't really follow Brazilian politics too much, but I would say he's quite divisive. That would be probably I don't know. He is very conservative, so yeah. So, but couldn't really say more. I think the problem as well, too many people focus on these people, presidents and prime ministers. We need to focus more on ourselves. Forget about these people and try to get our lives in order, because they're not going to do anything for us. No, you finally arrived. It was an early live stream, No, and I'll stay on a bit longer for you. Just as Americans, yeah, Larry Kudlow is really bad news. He started his career at the New York Fed, so there you go. That says it all. Not that there aren't probably good people from the Fed, not the people that are high up. I mean, I worked in the city, so I don't want to say everyone is bad, so to speak. But Larry Kudlow, yeah, he's a cheerleader. Nikki Sticks. Yeah, maybe the next time I'll get together with him, I'll be on his channel. I had him on. I think it was last week or the week before. Yeah, I like Mike from RTD. Golden Gate, the Fed. I don't know. I don't think they can keep it up forever. I said, I think on March 26th that we could rally back to around 24,000. And I think that's just where we got up to on Thursday. So it could go higher, but I think we're like Japan in 1989, 1990. We ain't seen the bottom yet. It's going to take a little longer. Bonifacio Rios, great work on interview with Ron Paul. Thank you. Yeah, I do like Mike a lot, Nikki. So yeah, I'll definitely be back on with him. Jim Watari, thank you for the super chat donation. 5 a.m. in California. Yeah, it's early in California. 8 hours behind us. Yeah, the Fed, they could buy all assets, but then, then we've become like the Soviet Union. We're just like slaves. And that's what they seem to be doing. But, a lot of people don't realize that centralized credit and the central bank is one of the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. But for some reason, they've been able to brainwash everyone. Not everyone, of course, because we're not, but like the mainstream media, mainstream economists, they all think that central banking is a good thing. So the Gloom Boom Doom report. Yeah, that was Mark Faber. That was a good interview as well. He's a nice guy. Turkey on shutdown. I'm not Portuguese. No, I'm originally from Brazil. I do speak Portuguese, but not Portuguese. I don't think I don't think Iceland has done a lockdown, nor Sweden. Yeah, Billy is he was on the sofa earlier, and then he jumped off, and he's asleep next to me. He's snoring. He has had a walk already. Central banks are all Rothschilds. Yeah, I think it's more the mechanism is the Rothschild mechanism. Yeah, Samantha Jane, things are not good in the UK. I agree with you. I was reading there's an FT article here today saying that 3 million people are going hungry in the UK because of lockdown. And this is just a survey, so it's not concrete data. I would say it's probably even more. Yeah, Coke Van Galen, I agree with you. Many people are completely unaware of what's going on. They're too stressed and worried about this crisis that there's no focus. There's nothing that in the mainstream talking about what the central banks and the governments are doing in terms of the money. Who runs the BIS? Well, the BIS basically, I would say, the same people that own the central banks. Yeah, they do have a general manager, the fat bastard, Agustin Carstens. Google that, it's just a joke, of course, but he looks like him. He doesn't, he's just like a day-to-day guy who runs it. But I think it's owned by the central banks. They're not really Basel bankers, Wiener, because the BIS is physically in Basel, but legally it's a sovereign institution. I think he even has a seat in the UN. Carlos Alexandros, my gold account manager in London, told me, wait until the end of the year, properties are going to tank. I agree. What do you mean by gold account manager? Yeah, sagacidade. Yeah, government. The word comes from government, your mind. That's right, government. Just me from Canada. Wiener thinks a few royals on the BIS. They're probably involved as well. Daniel Gummer, what do you think of the Queen's latest speech? Nothing, because I didn't listen to it. Sorry, I have no idea what she said. Who issued the one world currency? I guess it would be the IMF if there was going to be one. Trump to cut funding to the WHO. I heard that as well, but the latest thing I read about that is that he's backtracked, so I'm not too sure. All right, you buy gold from that person. So he thinks that the real estate market is going to drop a lot. Yeah, I think so too. Government, I don't think the government is throwing crumbs at the general public. They're helping, they're putting, they're giving a lot more money to the big corporations and Wall Street. And that's happening everywhere around the world. Anonymous, no comment or opinion on that, on who did what is happening now. I don't think central banks would. They could be part of the plan, but I don't think they'd do it physically themselves. How much are houses overvalued? Well, back in let's say back in 2000, the FTSE was at 7,000, and house prices were a lot lower. And now the FTSE is 5,000 or so. So yeah, go back to go and look at the nationwide house prices and look where they were. Maybe in the late 90s, early 2000s. Maybe that's where we should be. Robert Cowan says $1,200 isn't a drop in the bucket. Well, I think it will become a drop in the bucket because it won't be buying that much, because everyone's going to be getting it and no one's working. So they're going to be chasing a lot of goods out there. And what I meant by the bankers and corporations getting more, yeah, they're getting, I think, 1,000 times more in bailout money than the public. One world currency. I don't think there will be personally a one world currency. I think what they'll have to do is they'll have to back every currency by gold. they might call it SDR or whatever, but each country will still have their own currency. We will still have pounds. Americans will still have dollars, but it's more like what those currencies are based on. Right now, it's based on the dollar, the petrodollar. Okay, I'm gonna have to go now. This is almost 2 hours, so it was good, and thank you everyone for being here, and have a great rest of the weekend and Easter. Even though right now it feels like every day is the same. So take care. Thank you for all the super chats as well, and thank everyone for being here anyway. I agree. Bill Spencer, Project Zimbabwe is on, or Project Weimar.